Hey everyone, I'm back from my 1 week vacation and I want to thank everyone for the well wishes while I was on break. For my first video back, I wanted to update my Nvidia stock price prediction for 2025. That's the end of next year. So to make this prediction, I'm going to use several assumptions and estimates that have been updated from Wall Street, from Nvidia, and several factors have changed that have changed my stock price prediction for Nvidia stock. So let me share with you all of the numbers I'll be using for my Nvidia stock price prediction, and then I'll update and I'll share with you where I think Nvidia stock price will be by the end of next year. So let's take a look. All right, so one of the numbers I'm going to need to make my Nvidia stock price prediction is the current share price. And Nvidia's stock price has faced a little bit of a headwind here. It's now down to $123 per share, down from higher levels earlier this month now, or last month, I should say. Now, that was pending, right? Nvidia's stock price has absolutely soared in the last few years. So a little bit of a pullback was due. I know a lot of investors panicked because of the pullback, but remember, Nvidia's stock price is not going to go up every day. It's been rare that Nvidia's stock price has performed so excellently in the last few months. That's not to be expected going forward. Rarely does a stock go up as much as Nvidia has gone up. So a little bit of a pullback was inevitable. That's understandable. I don't think it's reason for investors to panic. Now, another number I'm going to need to make my stock price prediction is Nvidia's forward price to earnings ratio. It's currently trading at a forward PE of 34.56, down slightly from the forward PE ratios closer to 40 it was trading at peak valuations earlier in 2024 and over the last few weeks. Now, another number I'm going to need for my prediction is Nvidia's earnings per share. Now, it's expected to earn $3.63 in earnings per share next year. Now, I want to highlight something unique about Nvidia. Well, I shouldn't say unique, but I should say something interesting about Nvidia, and that is that its fiscal year and calendar year are not matching. So right now it says current year 2025 for Nvidia. That's because it's in fiscal year 2025, even though we're in calendar year 2024. So Nvidia is 1 year ahead on its fiscal year compared to the calendar year. Companies are allowed to do that. Next year it says 2026, but for calendar year that's 2025. I wanted to point that out so as if you're watching the screen and thinking, is that a typo? No, the companies are allowed to have fiscal years that are different than calendar years. Many companies do this. It is confusing and annoying, but they are allowed to do it. Okay, I wanted to point that out. Interestingly, also, these are the estimates for its earnings per share from the Wall Street analysts that are following Nvidia stock. So these are a collection of Wall Street professionals that are following the stock, and they make their predictions, their forecasts for where they think earnings per share will be. Now, these numbers change quite frequently, and those updates are reflected here in the EPS trend. You could see 90 days ago, the analysts on Wall Street were expecting $3.37 in earnings per share on a split adjusted basis. Remember, 90 days ago, the stock had not split yet, and that's why you see $30.37 here 90 days ago and $3.63 here as the current estimate. This is on a split adjusted basis. This is on a pre-split basis. And all it does is multiply by 10 or divide by 10 since the stock was split 10 for 1. So as you'll notice, the earnings per share estimates from Wall Street have been steadily increasing from $30.37 or $3.37 on a split adjusted basis up to $31.18 to $35.66 before taking a slight dip here 7 days ago to $33.80 and then back up to $36.30 or $3.63 on a split adjusted basis. So Wall Street is becoming even more bullish on Nvidia stock, if you can believe that's possible, because there's been so much bullishness around Nvidia stock. Myself, I've been bullish on Nvidia stock. I've had Nvidia stock rated as one of my top 24 stocks to buy in 2024, and I've had it there all year long. So I've been optimistic on Nvidia stock. Wall Street is now coming along and also being optimistic on Nvidia stock. Okay. The other number I'm going to need is a growth rate estimate for Nvidia, because I'm going to be using the forward price to earnings multiple. I need the earnings per share for Nvidia in 2026, in calendar year 2026, which would be fiscal year 2027. You saw up there, I didn't have that number given to me by the Yahoo Finance website. So they do give me the growth estimates for Nvidia stock. Next year, Nvidia is expected to increase earnings per share by 33.9%. And then for the next 5 years, they're expected to increase earnings per share by 46.35%. So I'm going to use these figures to estimate 1 year's worth of earnings per share growth for Nvidia. Now, I'm going to use a blended average of these two growth rates. So instead of using 34% or 46%, I'm going to use 40% because it's right about the middle of these two growth rates. Instead of taking the conservative estimate or the optimistic estimate at 46, I'm going to go in the middle at 40% as my growth rate for Nvidia's earnings per share next year. Hey everyone, I wanted to take a moment to thank the sponsor of this video. Mumu is a trading platform that allows individuals to buy and sell stocks and other investments. I posted the link to Mumu in the description below. If you use that link to sign up to Mumu, it'll help support my channel, but more importantly, you can get special incentives for using my link, including up to extra 10 free stocks. All right, so now that we have the numbers we're going to use, let's go ahead and make our calculations and prediction. So remember, we said calendar year 2025, Nvidia's earnings per share $3.63, and I got that from the Wall Street analyst estimates. Remember, we also said I'm going to use the 40% growth rate estimate because that's the blended average of the two different earnings per share growth rates for next year and the next 5 years. So if I apply that 40% growth rate to the $3.63 EPS for 2025, I get an EPS for 2026 of $5.08. Now that we have the EPS estimate for 2026, we can go ahead and apply our forward PE multiple to make our price prediction. So if the forward PE multiple were to remain where it is today at 34.56 and the EPS comes in on trend for $5.08, then Nvidia's stock price could be $175.63 by the end of 2025. Now that would be a nice increase of about $50 per share from the current $123 per share the stock is trading for. But what if the forward PE multiple were to increase even more? That would mean the forward PE multiple at 45 could mean the stock price would rise to $228 per share. That would be an increase of about $100 per share from its current valuation. If the forward PE multiple were to decrease, if there were some factors that were unfavorable to Nvidia stock, if competition was to suddenly and surprisingly catch up to Nvidia, a scenario which I think is unlikely, then the forward PE multiple could fall to 25 and the stock price would be relatively flat at $127 per share. And in an even worse case scenario where the forward PE multiple were to fall by roughly half to 18, then the stock price could fall to $91.48. So even in the scenario where the forward PE multiple were to slash by almost half, the stock price would not be down by a devastating amount to $91 per share. So you can understand why I've been bullish on Nvidia stock with great upside and a seemingly limited downside. That is, of course, if earnings per share continues at the current pace. This is all assuming that earnings per share continues growing at a robust rate as we have assumed with our estimates. Now, I've created 4 different scenarios here, but which one do I think is the most likely? That's where I'm gonna make my 2025 stock price target for Nvidia stock. I think Nvidia stock ends somewhere between the forward PE multiple of 34 and 45, and I think the stock price ends up by the end of 2025 somewhere between $175 per share and $200 per share. Thank you for watching this video. I truly appreciate it. I know there's a lot you could be doing with your time and a lot of other videos you could be watching. So I truly appreciate that you chose to watch this one. If you want to see more videos just like this, hit the subscribe or the like button. They'll both help me make more videos just like this one. Thank you again.